Hey, it's Jag, and today I don't have a plan. How is that different than any other day? All week long I've been kind of unmotivated, but it's getting close to the deadline for the GGBO build. I think there's about 6 weeks left right now. And I really can't afford not to work on the build today. So rather than force it and try and do something really big, I figured I would take a tinkering on it day. I have a bunch of small things that I need to do that aren't going to require a lot of thought. So the first thing I'm going to do, as you saw at the end of my last video, I glued that veneer onto the headstock. So I'm going to cut that and sand it down today and make sure we're good there. Also, you would have seen that I reshaped the headstock because of that little bit of blowout I had at the top here. And I actually quite like this. I kind of think of this sort of like a Fender Strat headstock versus a Fender Telecaster headstock. So I'm still going to use this one on Butch, but I'm really happy with the way I've had to reshape that top for the Mutt, which, by the way, I'm calling this one the Coach now. I'm learning so much from this one, and I already have one called the Mutt. This is just based on the Mutt. So this guitar is now going to be called the Coach. The Butch one that I'm building is Butch Junior, as I've said before, and that will have this headstock. So I'll have two headstocks out of this deal. So that's kind of cool. So the other thing that you saw in the last video was that little router blowout I had. And what happened was the bit didn't slip in the collet. The lock wasn't fully engaged. There was some dust or something in there and it loosened off. And as I was routing, the router rose up and the bearing came off the template and it was running free. So glad that didn't get any worse than this. I have taken that router, that lock apart. There was a bunch of dust in there. I cleaned it out and the lock works well now. So that shouldn't happen again. So also, as you saw at the end of the last video, I started that little end segment with the repair on this little blowout here. And I'm really happy with how that turned out. You can see here, you can't really, unless the angle is right, you can't even really notice it. There you can kind of see the repair a bit. But from this angle, it's almost not noticeable. Before I start putting the finish on this, I'm going to take some of that crimson dye I talked about, and I'm going to try and sort of draw in this sort of grain pattern, or sort of fake it with some of the dye. And I think I can get this pretty close to invisible. There's also a little part at the bottom where I can see a hairline between the repair and the top. And what I'm going to do is deepen that hairline a little bit with an X-Acto knife and then smooth some maple dust in there and do the super glue thing. So I think this will hide really well. I haven't talked about what I'm doing for the finish for this guitar. At least I don't think I have. The back of the neck, of course, the fingerboard, I will just use lemon oil on there like I always do. There won't be a finish on that fingerboard. I don't like that. On the back of the guitar, I'm going to use boiled linseed oil and use a little bit of a little trick that I know. You put a few drops of Japan dryer on a clean cloth, wipe the neck down, and then wipe the boiled linseed oil on there, and that causes it to dry more quickly. So I'll do probably a few applications of that, and probably a very light sand with 400 or maybe even 1000 sandpaper in between the coats of linseed oil. On the headstock, at least the front of the headstock, the back of the headstock, I might just do the boiled linseed oil as well so that it doesn't have a change when it gets up to the headstock. But on the body and the face of the headstock, I'm going to do a true oil finish. I have done true oil finish on the original Mutt. I only did a couple applications. I really wanted it to still look like the bare wood. On this one, I'm going to go a little bit deeper. I'm going to do somewhere between 8 and 12 coats of true oil, and I will smooth it on using probably 2000 grit sandpaper. That little very fine slurry that the 2000 grit will create should also help hide that that little boo-boo. And then between coats, I will sand it back because I expect the grain will raise a bit, and then I will apply more. I have a buffer which I will use to buff this. I also have a 3/4 horse motor from my old table saw that I do intend to make into a buffing wheel. I just probably won't have time to do that now. So this will be mostly hand applied finish, and then I will buff it out with my buffer. I think that will turn out fairly nice. I've seen a few people do that sort of thing with the true oil finish. I don't want it super high gloss. I like guitars to look like wood. That's a little bit of what I'm going to do. Not today, but as we go along. As I said, what I am going to do today, I'm going to start by cutting this veneer and then sanding around the edges, getting it down to the shape of the headstock. Then I'm going to leave that there for now. And the next thing I want to do is mark for the bridge and place the bridge on there, drill the holes and everything, get the bridge ready to go. I really want to get to the point where I'm sort of getting to the close to final stages of this guitar. Also after that, I will talk about what I have left to do and what I'm going to do going forward and sort of plans and ideas. And I haven't made any final decisions on some of those things, and I'd like the input of you guys on some of these things. So stick around after I do this headstock and the bridge placement. I'm going to run through some of the things I'm planning with the guitar, and definitely would like to get your feedback on some of those things. So here we go. Okay, well, I've got the veneer on the headstock now sanded to the main part of the neck. It's just rough sanded. I still have fine sanding to do on everything, so that will happen coming along. But for now, I'm really happy with the way this looks. You can see I've drawn out the where that sculpt will go from the neck. That's just a rough drawing. This is looking good. So now I'm going to place the bridge. So I'm not sure how great these guys are, but I was looking and I thought I'd try one of these Music Lily bridges. You get them on Amazon. I think this was still about 60 or 70 bucks, so it's not a super cheap bridge. It is really quite a nice bridge. I like it, and I think it's going to work quite well. It's a little bit wide, but I don't mind, especially on this guitar. It looks okay. My scale length is standard Fender, 25.5. From the front edge of the nut to the 12th fret should be 12 3/4 inches, and it is. Our scale length line it should be at 12 3/4 inches above the 12th fret, or 25.5 from the edge of the nut. I already have marked it on here. You always want to double check that your neck is sitting all the way in the pocket. You wouldn't want to end up with your scale length messed up. Double check it from the end of your nut to the scale length line, to the scale line, and it should be 25.5 inches, and it is. that's where the scale length is, or the nominal line for your bridge saddles. But as everybody knows who's ever set up a guitar, or even if you look at the bridge on a guitar, the saddles are staggered. The low strings are farther back and the high strings are farther forward. So they don't line up right at the scale length line, and that's due to the geometry of the strings, and we won't get into all of that. What most people do, and I do a modified version of this, they place the bridge so that the saddles, the midpoint of the saddles, their adjustment forward to back, right at that midpoint, that is on the scale length line. I always find that when I do this, maybe it's because I use a bigger E string, but I can never get my E string quite far enough back. I always set my bridge just a hair, maybe a millimeter farther back, so that I can get the E string intonated, the low E string intonated properly. The high E string I never have a problem with. I'm going to take this bridge and I'm going to adjust these saddles so that they're in the mid-range of their travel. And then I'm going to put some tape around the edges here and mark that. I'm going to extend my scale length line, and then I will line that bridge up on those lines so that we're lined up perfectly this way. I'm also going to use some tape and draw a center line of this bridge this way and line it up on my center line. Then I'll know the bridge is placed right, and I can mark for all the holes to drill, plus the holes for the strings. I've loosened this saddle all the way so that the end of the screw is just on the inside of the hole here. That's about as far forward as I would want to go. Any farther forward than that, and there might not be enough threads on the inside of the saddle to continue holding the string. The one next to it, I'm going to tighten all the way back. So this saddle is as far forward as it goes. This saddle is as far back as it goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this saddle so that it's almost in the middle of the travel of these two saddles. As I say, just a hair actually farther forward, so that when I put the bridge on, it's set back a little bit to accommodate the thicker E string and the intonation for that. To make this easy, you can do one saddle on one side of the one you're centering all the way forward, and the other saddle on the other side all the way back, and then it just makes it easier to line things up. I just kind of eyeball this. So there, that saddle looks like it's approximately in the middle of the travel of both of these. I want my bridge to be a little bit farther back, so I'm just going to take this saddle and move it forward just about a millimeter. So that is what I'm going to line up my my scale length line with for these saddles. So I'm going to set all these saddles so that they're that same length, and then I will mark, as I say, with some tape and line it up on the body. Okay, I've got the bridge lined up and stuck down with some double-sided tape. I have set these saddles so that they have about 4.5 millimeters of forward movement and a little more than 5.5. So I can take the saddles a little farther back from the scale line than I can go forward from the scale line, which matches up with the way every guitar I've ever set up is. Like I say, I use I use heavier strings on the bottom and 9s on the top. How I lined up the center of the saddles is basically I eyeballed it, but before I drew the final line, I took a ruler, put it across the adjustment, the set screws in roughly the middle, and just made sure that it looked like the line was lined up perpendicular, and it is. The other thing that I do to double check that the bridge is lined up perpendicular to the center line is I have the neck in here, and I just take the ruler and run it down the side of the neck until it just touches the bridge. The 21st fret is almost bang on 7 inches to the leading edge of the bridge, just a little over 7 inches. So that's on the high side, and then I just check that on the low side I get the same measurement. It's just a hair over 7 inches on that side too. So I know that this bridge is perpendicular to the neck. When I do the final lineup, whether I glue it in or bolt it in, I will use that laser level and make sure that's straight, and then I'll do some other measurements here just to make sure it's all good. So now I've got this this bridge in place. I'm going to mark the holes to drill the mounting holes. There's 5 screws. I'm also going to mark where the string through holes are. And I'm going to do that using, you can use an awl, that's fine, or a drill bit or whatever. I have these transfer punches that I really like because they make the mark dead center. Maybe I'll explain that a little better. The thing about transfer punches is they have a point on the tip. And then the diameter of them is exactly the diameter of the hole you're putting in. So when you put it in that hole, the tip actually centers. So I always do the high E and low E string through center first, mark it first. I'll show you why when I go to drill the through holes. Okay, that all looks good. Well, something's changed in the shop. New gear day, totally unexpected. At this point, I'm really glad that I didn't go out on the limb to get a bandsaw and decided to wait, because my little 8-inch benchtop drill press does not have near the capacity to drill the through holes in the body. And I have no inclination to try and do that by hand. I know some people are that good with their drills, but I don't think I am. So off to KMS I went, flyer sale, got a benchtop 14-inch drill press. So didn't want it, but needed it, so happy I got it. And it was their floor model, so it was on sale, plus I got a little bit of an extra discount because it was the floor model, so all good, saved a few $100 there. So I haven't done anything other than put it up and get ready to drill the screw holes for the bridge. And then I'm going to do some tests on a off-cut piece of oak just to make sure this is set up straight enough that the through holes will come out right. Setup of this will all be later. I haven't even set the laser on it yet. So here we go. The inaugural run of my new 14-inch benchtop drill press. I will say there's another thing that I have discovered. I have a massive allergy to the sawdust from pine, and I discovered on Sunday from maple as well. When I cut that little piece, just that little tiny piece to repair this divot in the body, that was maybe a cut about that long. It was a circle, but maybe an inch worth of cut. And I didn't wear my PPE when I did that, and it took me 2 days. I couldn't breathe, I was congested, so I have a pretty severe allergy to maple and pine. I don't know about other woods, but you're going to see me wearing my PPE a lot more now. When I was marking the centers, I said that when I do for the marks for the through holes, I like to do the outside, the high E and low E first. And that's because they're the only ones I'm going to drill through. You've seen this on many YouTube videos. Then I will drill the other holes. I will start them from the top, and I won't go all the way through the body. Then when I flip this over, I'll stick it on the bottom of the body using the super glue masking tape trick, and line it up with those 2 outside holes, and then I will drill through these 4 holes to meet up with the holes coming from the top. that worked out really well, as you saw. I'm not going to drill the holes for the ferrules yet. I have some ferrules, the ones that don't have the top. They sit flush with the body, but they're chrome. I sanded on the chrome, and they're actually brass underneath. So I'm debating on whether I want to use those on the back. You know, the ferrules being down here and being a shiny gold-colored brass compared to the tuners on the headstock and all the other gold hardware. Probably won't be noticeable, but I just want to think on that a little bit. So I may actually order the standard Telecaster style ferrules with the knurling and the little lip on the top. So for a day where I was unmotivated and didn't really have an idea what I was going to do, I think I got quite a bit done. Got that headstock veneer sanded and looking good. I got the bridge placement done and all the holes drilled for that. I would have liked to have had the time to finalize that neck pocket, the depth of it. I know what I'm doing with that. And I'm still not sure about the what I want to do about pickups. So I'm just going to go really quick over a few of my ideas. Like I said, I had some questions that maybe you guys would want to get in on. What I'm thinking about with the neck pocket specifically, once I decide on the depth, I have not still decided whether I want to make this bolt-on or glue-in. I think bolt-on probably makes most sense, although everything lined up really well with the laser the other day, and I think this actually is tight enough for a glue-in. The other day I said it wasn't. I didn't think it was tight enough, but that's because there's no support up here. It does fit really snug, and the joint is really, it closes up really well. So I would just have to clamp the neck from this side and the top when I glue it, and I think that would be good. The other thing I'm debating on is whether to leave this little tiny piece here, sort of to give it that faux look like I put it in with a tenon, and I want to do a relief carve here as well. So this might be a little extreme. I want to sculpt it down here. So just want to know if you guys have some input on that. In terms of the finish, I already told you about that. So let me know what you think about a true oil finish and boiled linseed oil for the neck. And for pickups, I said I was going to wind pickups for this, and I still want to wind pickups for it. I'm not sure I'll have time though, so I may actually wind pickups specifically for this build after the competition, and that's because I do have a set hum single here that I wound a few years ago and haven't used. I have the specs written down. I didn't have my inductance meter at that time. I have one now, so I will check the inductance as well. The DC resistance is only part of the equation when you talk about whether a pickup is going to be high output, low output, dark or bright. The inductance has a lot to do with it as well. But just on the surface, knowing the straight ahead resistance can give you an idea. You know, in other words, a 12K resistance is going to be a pretty high, pretty dark sounding pickup. A 6K resistance in a humbucker is going to be a little thinner sounding. So this one is wound sort of to PAF specs. It's more or less was wound to be like a PAF. I did what I call an extreme scatter wind on these. I really like scatter wound pickups. I don't have really a formula for how I scatter wind, and these were really scatter wound. I really wanted to just see how they sounded. These are from a prototype guitar I built a few years ago using a body from a CNC machine that was actually based on the mud as well. And these are really nice, articulate, clean pickups. So this bridge pickup is 7.44K. Resistance, so very much in the PAF territory. The middle pickup is reverse wound, reverse polarity, single coil, and the neck is a single coil. And the middle is 5.86K, so again, very vintage resistance, very vintage sound, very open sounding pickups these are. And the neck is 5.7K, so they're pretty close to the same. So I may not specifically wind pickups for this guitar before the end of the competition if I don't have time. But as far as the wiring, I don't ever use that middle pickup by itself, ever. I do like it occasionally for the sound for the with the neck. I like the neck and middle. I never use the middle, to my recollection, with the bridge pickup. But what I do really like is the bridge pickup and neck pickup. So if I go hum single single here, I will also add a switch so that I can bring in the neck pickup when I've got the bridge pickup selected. But my decision isn't 100% made that this is going to be hum single single. If I have time to wind, so in other words, towards the end of September, or probably last week of September, I'll have to decide. If I have time to wind pickups for this, I'm leaning toward either just a single coil in the neck and a humbucker in the bridge, maybe a Telecaster pickup set, a Telecaster style neck pickup and a Telecaster style bridge pickup. Or I could go 2 P90s or 2 humbuckers. Regardless of what I wind, it won't be probably as scatter wound as these, but they will be a scatter wind, and they won't be a very high output pickup. I really want a nice articulate sound, and I find that you get that with less windings on a pickup. When you overwind them, it's great for crunch and overdrive and all of that, but the pickups always get dark and not quite as crisp and clear sounding. Let me know what you guys think. I know it's always colored by people's preference, but I would really like to know. The neck from bottom to top is actually quite thick. It's about 25.5 millimeters. I'm going to leave it that thick there. And then when I carve the neck, I'm planning on taking it down to about somewhere around 22 and a half thick here, and up at the 12th fret about 20, maybe 24. I actually like a thick neck, so I'm going to start with that. If I find it's too thick and I don't like it so much, I can always thin it down. I can't put the wood back on, but I can take it off. Well, I guess I can put it on too. I've done that a couple times now, but not on the neck. So I'm going to go with a pretty thick carve, a modern C, but I could go a V or maybe even an asymmetrical. We'll see. But in terms of the radiusing of the neck, it's been glued up and cut like this for a couple of weeks now, and it still doesn't seem to have moved. I do think I'm going to take another run over here just to make sure everything's okay. One thing I forgot to mention when I did this is I did sand in deliberately a little bit of fall away. So towards this side of the neck, when I was sanding, I put a little bit more pressure on the base side and down at the heel end here. Not so much that I couldn't sand that out. Like I say, this is a pretty thick neck right now. I could take this so it's perfectly straight along, but again, being a heavy-handed player, I always have a lot of problems with buzz from my low strings, and I don't have my action very low. So the idea of doing some fall away made sense to me. So there is a little bit of fall away, not much here. The frets feel more natural that way. Whereas if you do your fall away on the frets get shorter up here and they start to feel funny. Little fall away starts up about here, and it does kind of go this way a bit. So it slopes just a little bit here. So a little less fall away on the A string, a little less on the D, a little less on the G. By the time you get to the B and the E, well, even the G string, it's pretty much straight all the way down. I've looked at this with a straight edge. I have no gaps, no issues, no back bow, no concave, no convex. And the truss rod is still neutral. That's it for today. A bit of a ramble just now. I didn't have a plan, didn't know what I was going to do when I came out here this morning. And I'm glad I figured a few things out. And like I say, happy with that. That's really awesome. I thought I had set up my little drill press so that it worked really well, but you can just feel the difference with a good piece of gear. Nothing wrong with that little 8-inch bench top for most things, but I think I would have had a little bit of issues with some of the precision, like for things like the string through ferrules and whatnot. So, like always, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, share the video. I really appreciate you guys coming and watching. It's just amazing to me that so many people watch my videos. I've had so many more subscribers in the last month or so, and it's really it really feels good. It's validation. I feel like I'm doing something that is interesting or entertaining to you guys. Building guitars is not the thing that I normally have done. Amps is something I'm really comfortable doing. Guitars, I was not too sure how this was going to go. So again, thanks to you guys for all your support. Thanks for all the feedback. The guys in the GGBO, especially the ones that we're communicating back and forth, I really appreciate your input, appreciate knowing you guys, even though we're worlds away. So again, like always, thanks for watching. Check out my band, One Soul Thrust, and until the next video, we'll see you.